If growth is important, if profitability is important, and you do nothing else, do this well.
Welcome to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc., where we feature experts in growth and brand visibility for law firms and architecture, engineering, and construction firms. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm Michelle Calcote King. I'm your host, and I'm also the principal and president of Reputation Inc. We're a public relations and content marketing agency for law firms and other professional services firms. To learn more, go to rep-inc, that's inc with a K.com. As we all know, running a business isn't easy, much less when you do it alone. And with so many plates to juggle, managing a law firm can leave many law firm leaders stretched very thin. And the industry is evolving so quickly that many law firms find themselves falling behind even as they're working to catch up. So we're going to talk to the perfect person to discuss this topic. His name is Gary Mitchell. He's an author, business coach, and consultant specializing in professional services firms. And he also hosts the Law Biz podcast, which I've been very lucky to be a guest on. So Gary offers several coaching programs for law firms through his business On Track Coach. And we're excited to pick his brain today. So welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Michelle. It's great to do this reciprocally.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's fun. I'm excited about this. So well, let's start with telling me a little bit about what you do at On Track Coach and background.
Okay, Michelle. Well, it's interesting how I got started with coaching lawyers, initially lawyers. I've always kind of been predicated to a career that helping people. I found myself being a campaign manager for a lawyer. I had a lot of political experience and background, and I got a call one day, and this lawyer candidate needed some help, and so I went and met with him, and he was green. I mean, a coach's dream, really, because blank canvas, and he was very eager to learn. And so I ran his nomination. He won the nomination, which in the US is kind of like a primary, right? To get to be the candidate. And this is on a federal level. So I became his campaign manager reluctantly for the federal campaign. And I swear I had the greatest aha moment of my life. Instead of being the person, now I was the person behind the person. And to watch him grow and evolve and become an amazing, partly due to what I gave him, was like, wow. And during that experience, one of his friends came up to me after a campaign meeting, and a former lawyer, and said, Gary, I've seen what you've done. You have this ability to, help highly intellectual people with skills they're not accustomed to. You should look at the legal industry. And after I picked my jaw up off the floor, I began about 9 months of research. I'm in Vancouver. There wasn't anything going on here. So I looked at what was going on in the US, and business coaching was already a fact of life back in 2006, not so much in Canada. But then serendipity came in, and the first chapter of the Legal Marketing Association outside of the United States was formed right here in Vancouver. I went
Oh,
to the
very cool.
original. Yeah, it was. I mean, it just fell into place. I'm in the midst of my research. I went and met a number of people who I'm still in touch with. In fact, many colleagues. Um, and then I got on the board. And then a couple months later, my first publication, a first article written for a legal publication. And we spoke about this when you guessed it on my podcast. My first article was about media relations and lawyers. So it all just came to come into place. So then I started coaching lawyers, and I haven't looked back. What I do at On Track, in a nutshell, I help my clients get more freedom in their career with fulfillment and control, more financial freedom, more life freedom. And I do this through helping them with BD, HR, leadership, marketing, and growth and profitability. That's in a nutshell what I do.
Yeah, that's great. Because yeah, I know, small business owner myself, and I know law firms have very unique challenges they face. On your website, under your managing partner growth program, you mentioned small yet strategic and targeted improvements. Can you walk me through what that means and give me examples of that?
Sure. Well, first of all, what I do in the managing partner growth program is it's really focused on the managing partner,
Yeah.
his or her role, and what impact they can have within the whole firm. So I start out with a SWOT analysis with them, not the firm, with them individually. So we look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I've been around long enough to remember when the old school of thoughts around SWOT was, you pick up your socks with your weaknesses, you improve them. And then along came a gentleman by the name of Steve Jobs and turned that theory upside down. His philosophy was forget about your weaknesses, focus on your strengths, become a master, and build a team around you that fill in the holes where they're left by your weaknesses. This has been a very successful approach. So I help law firm leaders identify what are their strengths, then help them build a team around them. Right. So that's leadership,
Yeah.
um, to fill that out. Building the team is critical, and also very important is balancing their time and efforts between managing the firm and managing their own practice. In most cases, these people are still like serving their own clients, let alone not to mention growing their own practice. So it's like they have two full-time jobs. So that's a big part of it. Small improvements. My philosophy has always been it's incredible what you can do when you make small incremental improvements because they compound. When we think of change, people fear change because oh my God, it's so much, so big, it all happens at once. Most effective change happens slowly, methodically, strategically in small steps. And I remember having one client tell me after we worked together, and I think he posted in a testimonial, Gary showed us how to make these incremental steps, which had profound impact once they were compounded. So those are on like leadership, team building, delegating, client management and communication, and workflow and process. Those are some of the areas. Making just simple tweaks like team communication and workflow. When there's a team of lawyers and paralegals working together, is meeting regularly. And during that time, it was still Zoom because we were still in pandemic, right? But meeting, communicating regularly, where are we at with this file? What are next steps? So everybody's, talking together. And it's not just law firms, it's in general business communication can be one of the biggest challenges. And it isn't that difficult. The solutions are simple. Um, so those are some of the things, and those all impact culture, right? Ultimately. So
I love it.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned processes because I wanted to ask what are some of those systems and processes that you see in law firms that might hold them back from growing the business?
Well, actually, that's a funny question, I think, because it's the lack of the processes that hold them back in business. So instead of focusing on negative, let me turn it around and focus on positive. It's part of my DNA, I guess, maybe how I found myself to be a coach. And I'll use a client example. Two co-founders, two women co-founders of a firm. Now it must be 15 years back. I worked with them in their just after their first year. So they were still in startup, but they made some mistakes. They got some successes. They got some wins. I helped them with some small systems and processes, and then they took what little advice I gave them, and they actually were guests on my podcast recently. They systemized everything, templated everything, processes everything, streamlined everything. So workflow, when you're doing a task over and over again, and they've been talking about this since I've started coaching in 2006 is create templates and systems so you can plug and play. New employees come in, new people come in, whether they be lawyers or paralegals, and there's a system and a process, and everyone's doing the same. Well, lo and behold, COVID hit, and then both of them went on mat leave, and one had a very serious health scare. And because those systems and templates were in place, they were not only they not only survived through these challenging times, they've continued to thrive. And talk about freedom. They're both parents, they're both moms, and they leave their office every day at 4:30 and they don't work weekends.
Nice.
And that's because of the systems and processes, right? I always, when I'm working with clients, I ask them, have you ever seen the movie The Founder? It's the story about McDonald's. It's the story about the guy after the founders came along and put the systems and processes in place, which allowed them to grow and scale. So it's not only, yeah, I know everybody talks about growth, it's simplifying things for everyone, for the lawyers, for the paralegals, most importantly, for the clients.
Yeah. Yeah. McDonald's is that great example of how systemizing things and, developing those processes can really boost a business. You go into
Well,
a
and some people,
McDonald's anywhere and you know exactly what you're going to get. Yeah.
and some, I definitely have had pushback with lawyers over the years. What are you comparing us to hamburgers? No, your product, your widget, is you, the lawyers, the paralegals, your people, your talent. So, yeah, okay, I'm kind of comparing you to hamburgers because that's their widget, that's their product. But I think to date, they are still the most successful franchise on the planet. And it's because that's what they did better than anyone else.
Right.
And then everyone who came after them copied them, right? And it's making sure that everyone's on the same page, right? I don't mean creating robots. People have personality and their own styles, right? But when you're doing something over and over and over again, and people are recreating the wheel every step of the way, no one wins, especially the
Right.
clients, right?
Exactly.
If your
Yeah.
if your clients aren't happy, if your clients aren't really over the moon with your services, you're not going to stay in business very long,
Yeah.
right? So, I get pushback, but I'd like when I use analogies, Michelle, I try to keep things where people can relate, right? Everybody knows McDonald's.
Right. Well, the example I often use when I get that pushback from attorneys about, highly customized and things like this is sort of, I think there's a book out there called Checklist Manifesto, and it's surgeons. So these are surgeons. They realize their success rates, their infection rates went down, their success rates went up when they just used checklists.
Right.
So yeah, no profession can't be improved with some sort of process and templates and checklists. So yeah, that's great. I noticed that you also help firms with employee engagement. Can you tell me a little bit about the issues that some law firms face around engagement?
I'm not going to call out lawyers as being the only demons in this area. It's
Yeah,
humans. It's
very much
humans.
so. Yeah.
We all want to press the easy button. We want the one size fits all, right? It's easier. No, there is no one size fits all. There's two things I would say: no one size fits all, and no sink or swim. And this is where they drop the ball, and um, all businesses drop the ball. How can you, like when you put a puzzle together, Michelle, not one piece is exactly the same. And yet some people will still try and force those pieces in to make the puzzle come together. That's HR, that's a team building, that's organizing any group of people beyond one. Once you go beyond one, right, you've got to look at individual strengths. And another thing is empowering and engaging. I'm going to give you an example. A senior partner I worked with recently was coming back to the practice after leave, and he was looking for more fulfillment in his career. And it's ironic what happened because through I spoke about delegating right earlier, through the constant broken record of me on coaching calls telling him about delegating, and he got it and he built a reputation within the firm as the partner to go to. The associates talk, right? He engaged them, he empowered them, he mentored them, he got them involved in the client relationships, he took them to client events. So that now the associates, instead of being in the corner at their desk doing just the grunt work, never having any face time with clients, never having any part of the relationship, are now fully engaged. Well, how hard do you think it was for him to build his team after that?
Right.
He was like a magnet,
Yeah.
right? And that is, again, that's not rocket science. That's pretty simple. And unfortunately, his firm remunerates for that, for leadership, for mentoring. And so, while his individual numbers declined, his group numbers flourished. And of course, because he's spending more time. Now, what happens there? Clients are getting better value because you've got a second year, third year, or fourth year associate doing the work that previously might have been done by a partner hoarding the time and hours. So clients happy.
Right.
You've got an associate who is learning and growing in their career and being a part of the process. So they're winning. And the, the leader, the partner's winning because his growth, his group is winning. So the firm is winning, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, I mean, I just think there's a couple simple things. Employee engagement is I'd say in the top five, where improvements made could have astronomical positive impact, and
Yeah.
that's large or small firms.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it in both.
That's fantastic. Yeah, yeah, I can definitely understand that, and it's not lawyers' fault. Often it's due to the nature of the how firms are structured, the traditional nature of workflow within a law firm. It doesn't lend itself to collaboration very well
No,
there.
no.
So yeah, that's really important.
Part of what I do sometimes is encourage people to follow their own instincts. And his own instinct was this is where he wanted to go. And I kept telling him that is the most successful business model. Okay. You're here, and this could be a practice group or industry group or the entire firm. You're here, and then you build your organization and team wide and deep, right? And so gradually in that process, you're doing less and less of the actual legal work. You always want to be doing some of it, right? Be frontline, working with clients, but less and less, and focus more on the training and grooming of your people and the client management as well, making sure the clients are happy. But he had an inclination to go that way. So that helps. And as you say, most firms are not structured that way. So it's a kind of tug of war, right?
Yeah,
Another challenge.
yeah. The other challenge that many law firms are facing today is succession planning. And I noticed that you help firms with that, which I can see as a critical area and something they would need help with. So, when is that right time firms should be thinking about succession planning?
I'd say it's never too early to start thinking about succession planning. It should be a perpetual, constant motion. Let's use a large firm, for example. It's more bureaucratic. You've got more owners, more voices, more, but there should be like a time frame and a revolving system, in my opinion, where a managing partner is coming in for a set mandate. Because from my experience, also, it's rare that a partner wants to stay in that position for the rest of their career.
Right.
I've actually worked with managing partners where they transitioned back to just managing, growing their own practice after several years at the helm. Again, there is no one size fits all, but consider a time limit or a term. Everything's flexible, and the process is always moving so that when that managing partner is at the helm, they're already starting to identify and groom upcoming leaders that demonstrate the skills, demonstrate the willingness and interest in taking on leadership. Not
Yeah.
everyone does. Not
Right.
everyone does. Right. Again, we're not all the same. Firms, especially, again, they try to do everything the same for everyone, and it's like they don't spend enough time working with the individual strengths of people. And that's how you build the most successful teams, right? I could use all kinds of sports analogies, but there's probably a lot of people maybe listening that are not that into sports. So I'll spare them. Huh. But it's like putting a sports team together, right? Not
Yeah.
everyone is the goalie,
Yeah.
right? I'm using
Absolutely.
hockey. Hockey's going on right now, but the biggest mistake is not planning at all. That's the
Right.
biggest mistake. And, in smaller firms, I remember one time, like you say, when is the right time? I would say for a smaller firm owner, when you start to be thinking about your next phase of your career, whatever you want to call that, you might call it retirement, you might call it next phase, you might call it semi retirement. Again, your choice. When you start thinking about it, that's the time to start planning. I remember having a client years ago, and she approached me and we got started, and she said, well, I have applied to become a provincial court judge. In Canada, you don't get elected. You apply through the process. But that's not going to happen. So let's get started on this. Well, 9 months later, it happened, and there she is. And we had just begun really that process. Now, she didn't walk away empty-handed. She was able to sell some of her book, but had had we started working, say, 3 years prior to that, she would have increased the value of the firm. She would have been able to put all those systems, processes in place, templates to make the firm more profitable, scale it up. make it more attractive for an outside buyer. And what we were doing at the time was actually grooming from within for someone to take over succession.
Yeah.
In her case, it wasn't bad news. She wanted to become a judge, so she became a judge. But like really, I mean, I look at so many situations where the small firm owners walk away and like they haven't planned ahead long enough to put those systems. What somebody's looking for as an outside buyer is a turnkey
Right.
business, right? As much as possible, they want to come in and take over, do the client work, and it's already a well-oiled machine. And if you're just starting to think about it Tuesday and you want to retire next month, that doesn't leave you enough time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that all ties in with the, systemizing, the processes. That's all
everything
critical,
does.
right, yeah,
Everything
yeah,
does. Growth, profitability. Everybody's talking about revenue. Most business owners focus everything on revenue. What about profitability? Right?
yeah,
If you keep growing your revenues, but your profitability is not increasing, where are you going wrong? Well,
right,
most cases, you don't have those systems and
right,
processes and templates right there. They're checks
exactly.
and balances, right? And they help people at all levels of the firm do their jobs better, which in turn makes that clients happier,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So we've been talking about transition in the selling process, with firms, and if so, what are some of the things firms need to think about if they're looking to sell?
First of all, I'm glad you asked that the way you did, because that is not my area of expertise. So when it gets to that point, or before that point, actually, I will introduce them to a firm broker, and that firm broker will really help them with the negotiation part. My job really is to get their firm to the place of being a well-oiled machine,
Right,
turnkey operation, profitable, and in turn, by doing that, I help that lawyer or the team increase the value of the firm. So
yeah,
then I pass it off to the broker on the negotiation side. I'm still involved in the transitioning, right? Working with
right.
the leaving owner and the incoming owner. But the negotiation part, I will leave up to other experts.
Well, I think what you're doing is the real critical part, which is getting it ready for it to be a sellable product. So without that, it's hard to even talk about a sale. Well, you use the word transition, and I wanted to talk about transitions with lateral hires. Why is thinking about lateral hires and how to transition them into the firm important?
Wow. I think it's the number one missed growth strategy out there right now. And has been for some time. If you look
Interesting.
at how much firms spend time, money, energy, money, I'll repeat it again, money on marketing and trying to get new clients, it's
Yeah.
astronomical. When you are able to attract a high level lateral partner with a book of business, a solid book of business, it makes no sense to me why you would let them sink or swim and flounder away when they arrive at your firm.
Right.
I've been involved in this, and the smarter firms. There was an article recently written about this. I wish I remember the name. It was actually the most amazing kind of play on when you see firms who get this right, their profitability increases like incredibly at a much higher rate, and their rep for recruiting and retention, which goes back to recruiting, which goes back to growth. I mean, it just, again, like I see it as an incredible growth opportunity. And I mean, let me tell you this funny story. I was working with a client, and I worked with him years ago when he ran his own firm. And then he got eaten up by a major national firm. And then he moved to a new major national firm. And we were out for lunch one day, and he was telling me about his onboarding experience, his first day. And this goes to what law firms are not getting right. This was a high profile partner with $1 million book. Okay. 1 million
Mhm.
coming over, and his clients were extremely loyal. They stayed with him from his own firm to the move to the national firm, and they were following him to the next national firm. So that was like a guaranteed million added to the revenues of the firm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not shabby, right?
Right.
And he knows what he's doing. You don't have to provide any training in his field or his
Right.
lawyering, all of that. But they just let him show up and find his own way around his office. He said that his assistant was one floor below him. No one, even showed him, and he has a really good sense of humor. He goes, no one even showed me where the washroom was.
Wow.
And I mean, that wow is right, but that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So what do you do? The opposite of that. The managing partner greets that new partner at the front door, day one, welcome to the firm, walks them around the office, introduces them to the other uh, influential or, higher ranked partners. This is Bob. This is Sue. It's their first day. We want to welcome them to yada, 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 LLP.
Yeah.
They take them to their office. They introduce them to their support staff, right? These are simple things, right? So that's one thing. But the most critical thing that will also shorten, and this is why it's so important for growth. When that person comes in, it usually takes about 2 years. This is statistics that have been out there. I don't know where they are, but they have been out there for a long time. Almost 2 years to make it profitable, because the large investment, when you're looking at that high level, what firms are investing in recruiting, the recruiting fees that they pay to get that, signing
Right.
bonuses,
Yeah.
whatever else it is, the outlay before any money starts coming in is astronomical. So
Right.
to let them alone and sink or swim doesn't make any sense to me at all. Provide support for pennies on the dollar, get them building those internal relationships from day one, their other partners, the associates, their team, right? This analogy, I think everyone can relate to. Think about if you ever moved when you were a child and you had to go to a new school,
Mhm. Right. Yeah. Right.
right? New
Mhm.
teacher, new classmates, new curriculum, new policies, new procedures, new everything. That's a lawyer coming to a new firm. So you let them just go, or you make them feel a part of it from day one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, what I do and work with those lawyers is the step one is those internal relationships. Theoretically, they've already done a sum well enough to be able to bring some or all of their book with them. So the current clients wouldn't be the priority. The new internal relationships with the partners and associates, step one.
Yeah.
And then, getting to know the policies, procedures, things like that. And I've had some amazing stories about transitions, positive, very
Yeah.
positive,
Yeah.
where that 2 years has been cut to less than 1 year.
Oh, that's
And
huge.
they're not only profitable, but they're becoming leaders and
Right.
practice group
Oh,
leaders.
wow.
And yeah, so it's amazing what's possible, right?
Yeah.
Like, if growth is important, if profitability is important, and you do nothing else, do this well.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that's what the article says too. Do this well. And, we can't do everything, right? Michelle,
Right.
like, as well as I do,
Yeah.
being a business owner, we have a likable, like to do list, check, check, check,
Oh
check,
my
check, check,
goodness. So
chip,
long. Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
And it's like, okay, strategically, if I can only do one thing, what would it be? I would say, especially because the craziness that we've gone under the last few years with the pandemic, with the great resignation, generational
Oh, yeah.
changes and
The rise of AI and tech, and
exactly,
yeah, it's just such a
exactly.
disruptive time. Yeah.
It's a hugely disruptive time, but remember what this is all about. Law firms are people.
Mhm.
People are the most difficult part of any business.
By
Technology
far.
is
Right.
easy,
Yeah.
easy peasy. Press a button, learn a new app,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't want to get into AI again. I am not an expert. I don't know if there is one yet, but
No. Yeah,
um,
exactly.
but I'm definitely not. But the people part, if you focus on this one area for growth, and and you get a rep,
Mhm.
huh, guess how many unhappy lawyers are out there?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you make it a warm and fuzzy place, lucrative. The culture is amazing. People supporting each other. They collaborate. The clients are over the moon. The
Yeah.
impact and repercussions are incredible.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I can see how that would be a very underlooked area for firms. So, yeah, the upside would be great. Well, I love to end conversations with sort of a bigger question. So I'm going to ask you, tell me, are you reading anything interesting right now?
As a matter of fact, I'm listening to.
Oh yeah, I do a
uh,
lot of audiobooks too. Yes.
well, it's like I don't know about you, but having time to just sit
Yeah,
and read,
very
right?
hard.
And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out there. So I'm listening to the new audiobook that I'm listening to is called Atomic Habits.
Ah, good
And
one.
it's
Yeah.
interesting that you asked me because everything we've talked about is about new habits.
Yeah.
And remember when you asked me at the beginning of this, what do I do? That's such an open question. And it's like, well, I do a lot of things, but what does it come down to? It comes down to me teaching my clients new habits and then
Yeah.
holding them to account to keep them up long enough where they become second nature. And
Yeah.
those new habits sometimes are uncomfortable at the beginning, as clients will tell me, but they do them long enough and they not only become comfortable, they become like every part of their day. And so I'm
Yeah.
loving this book. Everyone should read this book.
It's a
I
great
mean,
one.
the analogies he uses, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I love recommending books to other people. So that would be one I would recommend, Atomic
Same to me.
Habits.
I'm that's my go-to. If I have a problem, I'm like, there's a book to solve this somewhere. So
And it's
I
funny
love it.
because since I've posted about that, everyone, all of my colleagues that's heard of it, oh my God, I've read it. It's such a great book.
Yeah.
You might also want to listen to this one too. So
Love it. Well, thank you so much. We've been talking to Gary Mitchell of On Track Coach. So, Gary, if people want to get in touch, further this conversation with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on social, mostly LinkedIn, but you can email me directly at gary@ontrackcoach.com. There's no K in On Track Coach, just a double C. But happy to be with you, Michelle, and I'll look forward to continuing our conversation at some point down the road.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.